Do you want more from our detectives in Botswana? If so, then you're going to enjoy today's novel. Today, I will be covering The Full Cupboard of Life by Alexander McCall Smith. Welcome to Spencer Reads Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and today we're looking at the fifth book in the #1 Ladies Detective Agency series, The Full Cupboard of Life. Now, since this is the fifth book in the series, there is a fair amount of repetition that goes into each of these videos, but I will go ahead and say it anyways. I'm using this primarily as a synopsis because my overall review of all these books so far has been, I love them. I think they're great. And the things that I enjoy about all of them is the same in each and every one of them. And that is that I really enjoy the writing style. I think the dialogue is really authentic. I love the main character. Precious is such a kind-hearted individual. And I really enjoy the cases that she looks at, her approaches to these cases, and the fact that we also explore much more than just these detective cases. We're considering her life and the way she engages with the world around her. I love that about these books. And this book is no different. So I don't have any new critiques or any new things that I want to say. I do want to give you a quick synopsis, and that's what I've been using these videos for. So in this book, we're going to pick up where we left off in the last book. As you may remember, our main character, Precious, whose last name I still can't say, so I just call her Precious, even though the book always refers to her by her last name, has been engaged to Mr. JLB Matakoni for 3 books now. And she's now getting concerned that he has not actually set a date. And that's going to be a big part of this book, at her efforts at trying to get Mr. JLB Matakoni to set a date. He doesn't feel any real rush. They're both past their childbearing years, and so I think he doesn't feel any real urgency in that regard. They do have their foster children that they're raising together, so there should be reasons why he would want to actually get married. But for one reason or another, he's just taking his time. As you recall, one of the most interesting recurring characters in these books is the head of the orphanage. She has done so much in these books in terms of helping provide support for Mr. JLB Matakoni, but she has also managed to get him to adopt the 2 orphans that they are raising. And yet again, in this book, she comes up with this bizarre stunt to help raise money for the orphanage if Mr. JLB Matakoni is willing to do a parachute jump. And he agrees because he has a soft spot in his heart for the head of the orphanage. And so he says that he'll do it. Well, obviously Precious is not okay with that. And she finds a way to convince or encourage one of his apprentices, the older one, Charlie, to do it instead. If you know anything about Charlie, both the apprentices, but Charlie in particular, are obsessed with women. They're always talking about girls and dancing and going out, and they don't even really seem to care all that much about their work. As the books progress, that tends to be more of a Charlie issue. The younger apprentice tends to be a little more responsible, especially in the later books. And so Precious manages to convince Charlie that this would be a great way for him to get some attention and that all the girls would just totally swoon over him if he were to do the jump. And so he agrees to do it in the place of Mr. JLB Matakoni. And as Precious has been talking to the head of the orphanage, trying to get some advice from her, particularly about getting Mr. JLB Matakoni to set a date, she decides that this would actually be a great opportunity to essentially force his hand. And so the day of the jump goes really well. Mr. JLB Matakoni is so grateful that he didn't have to do it. Charlie does well, and it gets all this attention. The head of the orphanage, Mama Patakoni, I don't think I've said her name at all. She, because it's hard to say, she has actually set up everything so that in the celebration after the big parachute jump is where she encourages Mr. JLB Matakoni to take advantage of the situation, the fact that everyone is already together, and look, there's all this food that came from somewhere. Why don't you do the marriage right here, right now? And he does. And so this has one of the most climactic endings of the books so far. That is when they successfully get married, and it's a very exciting moment in this book series. Of course, those are all the main plot points, and of course there's some spoilers in there. There's several cases because obviously the premise of this book is that she's a detective. There's one big case in this one that she is looking at. The rest of the book tends to have much more to do with the other stuff going on, particularly the jump and her concerns about getting married. The one big case she's looking at is when a wealthy woman comes to her and asks her to investigate the 4 men that she's dating because she has money and she thinks there's a chance that each of these 4 men is really just interested in her for her money. And so the biggest case that she's trying to solve is when she goes to investigate each of these individuals to see, are they in it just for her money or do they actually care for her? And that part I'll let you find out on your own by reading the book, but I think I've given away enough of the story already. I really enjoyed this book. Like I said, I enjoy all these books, I have yet to read one that I don't enjoy. This one has most of the same characters. There's no major changes, no major developments in this that add new characters. You will see as the books progress a few more characters, and it does have one of my favorite ancillary characters with the head of the orphanage. I think she's very funny. I really appreciate how important she is to the books, and I really appreciate the fact that Precious kind of resents her, but still acknowledges and recognizes she is a good person. And sometimes she has to step on toes, and sometimes she has to ask a lot of people to get things done, but she gets things done, and she does it for an orphanage. And I think that's something that I really value about her relationship, because Precious is clearly a good-hearted person, and she just has such a good soul when it comes to her feelings about individuals. And right here's a moment where she's by no means mad or angry at the head of the orphanage. She just, has her reasons for being a little frustrated with her sometimes. But in the end, the fact that they can come together for the most important things, and that is, of course, the marriage or helping the orphans, I think that's one of the ways in which Precious really highlights the values of Botswana and the thing that she cares most about within these books. And so I just really enjoy that part of this book. As usual, who would I recommend this for? Well, it is the 5th book in the series. I don't recommend picking up right here. I do think some of the cases you could appreciate right off the bat reading this book as a standalone, but I don't think that you could appreciate all of the other stuff that's been built up to this point if you don't go and read the books before it. So if you have read the first 4 books, yet again, and I will tell you this every video, I think you should read this one too. I think it's great, and I really enjoyed the progression of the story. Who is this not for? Same things that I've always said. I don't think it's for people that aren't interested in a really big series. Again, I don't think it's for people that haven't read the first 4 books thus far. And again, I don't think it's for people that are looking for a more serious book. I not to say that there's nothing serious about Precious and her relationships and the detective cases she takes on. All those are serious things, but there's also just an element of levity and an element of appreciating life that could be used as a criticism of a lot of books these days in which people prefer that you deliberately have very emotionally taxing elements. And this one, I wouldn't say, even when she deals with really serious things, it doesn't have any of that emotionally taxing stuff to it. But I, of course, would love to hear what you guys have to say. Please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.